I'm Landis Wade, author of Deadly Declarations. This novel begins in present day in Charlotte, North Carolina, a New South city, with the mysterious death of a 96-year-old historian living at the Independence Retirement Community, located next to the Hezekiah Alexander home site, the oldest standing home in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, built a few years before the Revolutionary War. The truth is, this story actually begins close to 250 years ago in 1775 at a log courthouse in Charlotte, North Carolina, a little town, or should I say a village, George Washington called a trifling place. A meeting was held there by county representatives and militia leaders on May 19th and 20th, 1775 to discuss the egregious acts of King George and the government of England against the colonists. An express rider showed up in Charlotte with the news of a battle. The British Army had marched out of Boston and fired on colonists in Lexington, and then marched on to Concord, where the Patriots fired back, with their shots heard round the world. The date, May 20th, 1775, is a monumental day in North Carolina history that few people know much about. The date is on the state flag and the Mecklenburg County seal, because, as the story goes, on that day in history, Mecklenburg County declared independence from the most powerful nation in the world, and the document concluded by saying, "We solemnly pledge to each other our mutual cooperation, our lives, our fortunes, and our most sacred honor." Sound familiar? I'm sure you've heard of Paul Revere. But have you heard of a guy named Captain Jack? A 45-year-old tavern owner who later fought bravely in the war. Locals call him the Paul Revere of the South. James Jack was tasked with taking the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence to Philadelphia. It wasn't an easy trip. He rode 500 miles, risking his life and the lives of all who signed the document, to deliver the document to North Carolina's representatives at the Continental Congress. All of this is true. The only dispute by historians is, what did he carry in his saddlebags? Here's where the mystery really begins. The North Carolina delegates turned him away and told him the actions of the Mecklenburg Committee were premature. They never wrote about Captain Jack's visit, but they may have told other delegates about his visit and shown them the document, including Thomas Jefferson. And as I mentioned before, the language in the two documents was similar. Was this the first great American cover-up? We know what happened next. Battles were fought, a Declaration of Independence was signed 1 year later, George Washington crosses the Delaware, more battles were fought, and the British eventually surrendered at Yorktown. In 1800, the home of John McNitt Alexander, the custodian of the records of the Meck-Deck meeting, burned, and the Meck-Deck burned with it. Case closed, right? Enter founding father John Adams. In 1819, the Essex Register in Salem, Massachusetts, reprinted the Mecklenburg Declaration story from a North Carolina newspaper. John Adams read the article and wrote to Thomas Jefferson, calling the Meck-Deck the greatest curiosity and deepest mystery that ever occurred to him. Thomas Jefferson was not impressed. He repudiated the Meck-Deck, calling the document spurious. Adams later accused Jefferson of plagiarizing from the Meck-Deck. The mystery was never solved. North Carolina continued to celebrate the day. The rest of the country ignored it, except for those who sought to defend Jefferson's reputation and prove the document was a hoax. But neither side could prove definitively who was right and who was wrong, until now. Remember that 96-year-old historian I told you about? When they found his body, his manuscript on the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence was missing. They also found a handwritten will where he left his $50 million fortune to the most despised resident at the retirement community and cut his beloved granddaughter, his only heir, out of his will. When three unlikely retirees team up, one of them is a lawyer who has just cut loose from his big law firm, and they decide to challenge the dead man's will in court for the granddaughter, clues begin to surface that leads them down a dangerous path. It might provide the answers to a mystery that hasn't been solved in 250 years and others want to keep a secret. That is, if they don't die trying. Daily Declarations is now available in ebook. The print book will be released April 5th, and the audiobook will be released in late March or early April. Get it wherever books are sold.